Hi everybody, it's Emily Mashka from emilymaschkastudio. Today I'm going to be painting this house. Here is the sketch that I drew onto the watercolor paper. I first drew it on graph paper and then I did the final sketch onto the watercolor paper. And I'm getting the colors ready. Yellow is a very tricky color. It is the trickiest. In fact, out of all of the rings in the Olympics, the yellow ring has to be made smaller than the rest of the rings, because if they didn't, it would visually look larger than the rest of the rings. So I didn't want to have like a super bright yellow house. I really wanted to tone it down, so I toned it down with some yellow ochre and some Chinese white. So what I'm first going to do is paint all the yellow areas since it's the lightest color. I'm just going to work my way around and follow that little bead of paint around and just do a really light coat of yellow, because again, I just don't want a super bright yellow house. So I'd rather go a little light and add color if I need to than too bright. Then I paint the underside of the roof, that soffit area. And I paint it yellow first, and then I'm going to come back in with some gray because it's in the shadow. So here I come in with my gray after the yellow has dried. You want to do this. In any part, adding more gray here, any part that is in the shadow, that would be in the shadow on the underside of things, you want to put the gray in. And here is the blue. I just work my way around and do all of the blue details of the house. And for this area, I actually painted it yellow first and then put in these little details, these little wooden details. Because they were so tiny, it just would have been really difficult to paint around them with the yellow. That would have ended up looking, I think, really chunky. So I just painted right on top, and I think it turned out pretty well. For the windows, I wanted to do a blue like the sky, but I didn't want to do the same blue as what's on the trim. So I added a little bit brighter blue. It's called a deep blue to my space blue, and just kind of worked my way around and did all the little windows and letting it be like a little bit darker in some areas and a little bit lighter in some areas, giving it that more loose watercolor feel. And for the brick, the landscaping brick, I wanted to do, it's kind of a pinkish, reddish, brownish color. I wanted to keep it fairly light so that the pencil marks would show through those individual bricks. So I just, again, kind of wanted to do a wash. Plus, red is a really strong color, and you don't want it to be the main focus of the painting. So I'm going to have more color closer to the house, and as you go further from the house, it's going to lighten. So you can see here it's darker, and then I'm going to use quite a bit of water to spread the color around. Otherwise, if you have a lot of color towards the end there, where it starts to fade off into nothingness, it's going to look odd. It's going to look like a very sharp line of like, well, why did this person stop here? It looks like it should go on. Whereas if it fades into white, then it's you know, it makes more sense visually. Here I am adding the brown to the stairs. They're wooden stairs. Again, just trying to add a little bit of texture, some light and dark areas to give it a little bit more depth. For the stairs, I kind of do a lighter wash and then come in with some darker brown at the bottom. Again, just to give it a little bit more shadow and depth. For the garage, I had each individual panel sketched out. I wanted to erase most of that so that it was just barely showing through. Here I'm adding kind of a shadow line or where the garage door meets the concrete. And just coming back in, after I do a wash, I did a wash of gray, light gray over the entire garage. Then I came back in and added a little bit of detail, shadow lines on the top and bottom of those panels. For the brick, I wanted to do kind of a brownish gray wash over everything so it's not stark white. And then I came back in with a darker brown gray to do the brick detail. And it's really just a modeling of color kind of here and there. I went ahead and turned the paper so that I could get more of that horizontal direction of the brick, and even did some indication of lines, brick lines. For the concrete, just do a light wash over the entire thing, a light gray wash, and then come back in and add just a little bit of darker gray just to help ground the house. You don't want to leave it bright white. Then the yellow portion of this house has like a wood panel detail to it. So I just wanted to give an indication of that. I came in with a very light gray and tried to very handedly indicate that. And then this is the fun part. Well, it's all fun, but this is the like welcome change because everything is, you know, fairly tight with the house. You have to be fairly exact. The trees, you don't have to be hardly exact at all, which is really nice. So for these trees, you just kind of blob some paint around, leaving white areas, just like a real tree would have. You know, it's not a solid piece. And again, as you get closer to the edge, you want to have lighter tones fading into nothing. Just so you don't have that harsh, abrupt line. Here's the tree on the other side. I do end up actually adding a trunk to this tree as well, even though it's not in the picture. And they don't technically have a tree on that side from what I can tell. However, there's a house in the way. So this is probably the neighbor's tree actually. But like normally right there on the side of their house would be another house. Well, I'm not going to paint in somebody else's house. So I painted in the tree trunk of the tree instead, so that the tree just doesn't look like it's floating. For the grass, I added a little bit of blue to my green, just to change it up a little bit, so not everything is matchy-matchy. Plus, I think it deepens the color just a little bit, makes it a little more neutral, which is really nice against the house. Here's the branches for the tree. try and keep it fairly simple. You don't want a ton of focus to be on the tree. It's more about the house. The house is the main character, right? These are just supporting actresses, actors and actresses. I darken up the far tree a little bit just to make it seem like it's in the distance more and to make the house pop away from that tree a little bit. And here's the difference. Before and after. Ta-da! All right, well, I hope you like it. Thank you so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope to see you next time. All right, thanks so much. Bye.